impacts your agency, and how do you have an agency ultimately that attracts your ideal clients and having them essentially gravitating towards you. So what I tend to see happen on an ongoing basis is that the vast majority of agencies are trying to be everything to everyone. So you're not really differentiated. You're truly a generalist. And so the way that this affects your agency is that you're not able to effectively market. You're not able to message to your ideal client and have them ultimately wanting to engage with you and really being able to generate leads in a reasonable fashion. And so what ends up happening is that you end up feeling that you need to pitch, and your prospective clients are not sure how to distinguish your agency from any other competitor because ultimately you all sound the same. So the only thing that you are able to differentiate on is price. So this is why you end up being asked for discounts. This is why you end up having to try to get more done with less money and ultimately don't have the resources to be able to grow and scale your agency, which has far-reaching implications in the way that you operate, profitability, the time that you have, the amount of work that you're doing, the long hours that you have, the weekends that you're working. All of those things are creating and actually the core reason why you're having all of these symptoms. So what I want you to think about, ultimately speaking, is that when you're in this place, you are working in a fashion that isn't scalable. And ultimately, when you try to do this, your team is going to struggle and you have to try to pick up all the pieces because ultimately you are the core of the agency. You're the only one that has the far-reaching experience that is going to be able to do all of these things, or the know-how and ingenuity to be able to solve it and figure out how if you don't know how. Because ultimately, that, realistically speaking, is a characteristic more often of an entrepreneur than a team member. Not saying that you can't have team members that are problem solvers, you absolutely can, but typically speaking, not to the degree that the owner will. So it's extremely important to recognize how, when you have a specialized agency that allows for you to know exactly who you're working with and exactly what it is that you're doing, allows for you to hire people that are specialized in specific areas and can ultimately provide better support to your clients, consulting with them, providing better results, and ultimately allowing for you to not need to be the problem solver, that extinguisher for every single fire that happens. And right now, you are the agency, and maybe kind of even just a large freelancer with support is really what a lot of agencies are, especially on the smaller side, on ones that are sub $1 million. And even as you get sometimes larger, it still kind of ends up being the same thing with an even more stressed out agency owner. And what I end up hearing all the time is all I need to do is just sell a little bit more, and then I can hire the people I need, then I'll have the profit that I need, I'll have all these things. And quite frankly, I'm in a couple. Because ultimately, it's the foundation, it's the model by which you're operating that is causing all of these symptoms. And what you really want to do, and what ultimately the opportunity here, is creating an agency that is desirable, that is scalable, that attracts your ideal client, and doesn't actually need all of that time from you. So recognize that the specialization of an agency affects all of these particular areas, and I'll dig a little bit deeper into them in just a moment. It affects marketing, it affects sales, it affects client management, it affects client results, it affects your standard operating procedures, it affects client attrition and retention. So I want you to think about it this way. Let's say you have a family member that has a medical problem, and you have two potential options. You have a general physician that ultimately has never done this surgery before and may even be well respected and has a number of positive reviews on Google or on Yelp or whatever platform physicians use. And you have a specialized surgeon that does this surgery and only this surgery. I have a question for you. With this particular thing, do you question what the cost is really? Is that something that really is the first thing that comes to mind, is how do I figure out how I go with this direction, right? You feel the most safe, likely speaking, with the specialized physician here, the surgeon that's going to do this and has done this so many times and has a phenomenal result every time working and doing this particular surgery. You feel safest here. The same thing happens here. It's businesses and the clients that you work with don't have medical problems, right? They have lead generation issues, they have branding issues, they have creative issues, and those are the things that they need to solve. The more specialized you are, And the more that you're able to consult with them and articulate the results that you provide, the more safe they are going to feel, the less price conscious they become, and ultimately allows for you to be able to have the scale, the resources to hire the team that you need, be able to provide better results to your clients because ultimately you have the space that's necessary to actually dedicate. So you're able to actually have them feel more, they're able to get better results. They're able to actually feel more seen. You're able to work with them more. You're able to consult with them more and really be able to help provide the result that you're looking for. So you end up, the vast majority of agencies are so incredibly time strapped that they're not able to actually focus on the result. They're just trying to get things out the door as quickly as you possibly can, because ultimately that's what you have to do to survive. You're going from fire to fire to fire to fire. So I said that I was going to go a little bit further into the specialization and how it affects. So think about it from just marketing perspective, right? If you're able to write messaging specifically to the type of problem that your ideal client has and talk about it in a meaningful way that only affects them, if you're able to talk to the type of situation that they are having right now in that sort of internal monologue that they have going on inside their head, if you're able to articulate it, something that they're already thinking, they already feel safer with you. You cannot do that with a mass message to the general public. It just doesn't work that way. It doesn't. And I know that you can try and you can try your hardest, but it isn't going to work that way. You have to be solving one particular problem or one particular solution that allows for you to be able to articulate it and being able to actually help that person in the marketing, being able to have them resonate, feel safe with you, and ultimately want to raise their hand and say, hey, I actually do need to solve this problem, assuming that they have it. From a sales side of things, if you're ultimately able to talk to them in their own language about the things that they're affected with and actually truly advise in situations that ultimately affect that particular industry. So let's say that you are in a situation where you're talking with a manufacturer, understanding the implications of, supply chain right now and how it's actually affecting their business and what you actually need to be doing to allow for them to be able to market slightly differently, to be able to have people understand that, being able to actually articulate and be able to talk to them about what they're currently experiencing in their day-to-day life in the business. If you're able to talk about those types of things with them, the better benefit that they're able to have and the more comfortable that they're going to be able to be. With client management, you understand more about the way that people operate within that industry. You're able to tailor the way that you actually communicate with them. Is it more written? Is it more meetings? Is it more Slack? And what is it the way that you actually communicate with them? And ultimately allowing for you to be able to have a better relationship with them because ultimately you know them better and you're able to talk with them in a more meaningful, more connected way, which ultimately allows for you to have better client retention. They end up, people that have great relationships stay longer. And then client results, if you really understand how their industry is performing, what's actually going on, and take learning from all of your clients to be able to have greater results for them, they're going to be safer. They're going to have more assured result. So many people believe that businesses are ultimately going to be afraid of competition. And there's some slight aspect to this that does happen. But more frequently than not, it doesn't actually cause any issues. In fact, I've only encountered 3 situations with clients where, and working with Fortune 500 companies, that actually brought it up and ultimately was still resolved in the way that we actually managed it and still winning and working with both of the brands that were direct competitors, but actually managing it a little bit differently. But ultimately, these brands decided to work with this client because they understood the space so well. They understood what was actually going on for these brands and being able to articulate to their clients in a more meaningful way. And then from an SOP process perspective, you're able to actually develop things in a way that allows for you to be able to continually do things in the way that you should be. This affects your efficiency, this affects your culture, this affects your team utilization, this affects expectations with clients, and ultimately the results as well, and creates a framework for you to be able to truly scale. Specialization, ultimately speaking, is the catalyst for substantial growth for the vast majority of agencies. And on top of it, the vast majority of the larger agencies that are making substantial amounts of profit in the 25+%, are agencies that are specialized and are charging based on value, are actually understanding the value that they're able to provide to the clients. So included as the worksheet with this was actually an industry report that we generated, going through and collecting information from well over 100 agencies and their financial metrics of what and how they were operating. So you can actually do a side-by-side comparison of different agencies and really understand how it is that they're functioning. If you have any questions, any at all, about making a switch to being able to be a bit more specialized and what you should be looking at and some things that you should be considering, please do comment below or shoot us a DM. We're absolutely happy to help and provide you with some guidance. Ultimately, the faster you win, the better for us, and maybe at some point you may want to actually reach out and see how we can actually help you. So let us know if you have any questions. We're absolutely happy to help, and looking forward to seeing what you guys come up with and what you decide on from a specialization versus full service.